Hey guys, Introspection here, and I'm back with another video. So, this is going to be a somewhat unusual video in comparison to some of my other videos. If you go through my Instagram, you'll see that a couple of my posts involve information that isn't inherently unknown, or a lot of people will be familiar with the information that I post on occasion. I also post information that a lot of people don't know, but other posts are somewhat obvious, and you might think to yourself as to why I would bother posting things like this. Well, it's because on occasion I will bump into these videos where I'm sure you've seen them as well. You run up to another person on the street, you ask him some question, you record it for a compilation of interviews with random people on the street. And to the specific kinds of those videos that I'm referring to are the ones where they'll go up to a person, they'll ask him a very, very obvious question, and they'll usually be a person of some sort of category or party. So they'll say, oh, people of this generation aren't very smart. Or, oh, people of this party or this side aren't very smart. And then they'll ask him very obvious questions. And I thought about it, and I'm not going to lie, there have been a few occasions, as embarrassing as it might be, where, okay, yeah, my brain sort of got a little stumped. Of course, I quickly went to learn the information and rectify that problem. But nonetheless, I sort of thought about as to why this might happen to so many people. Well, okay, first, yes, a lot of them are just not very bright. I'm not going to lie. But a lot of them, I personally believe, that they just sort of have really large brain fart moments, especially on account of the fact that not only is some random person running up to them asking them some random question that they weren't even thinking about, but on top of that, they're under the pressure of being on camera. So it's understandable that over all that, yeah, you might brain fart. And let's face it, brain farts have happened to all of us. And if you tell me it hasn't, you're probably lying. And of course, the third reason as to why this might happen to people. A lot of these questions, yes, are very obvious, and for the most part, the majority of us have learned at one point or another. Chances are very early on in life. But if there are things that don't come up very, very frequently, in my opinion, I think that certain things are understandable that you haven't or you have memorized, but if you don't regularly use that piece of information, it's understandable that eventually it might start to fade. So here's a good example: primary colors. Yes, and if you're an artist, you probably know, and chances are we've all learned the primary colors at one point or another, but unless it's a question that regularly gets asked to you, what are the three primary colors, blue, green, and red? I will put them up on the screen right now. But if you're asked the primary colors and you're not an artist, therefore, unless you have some other weird circumstance, chances are this is not a question you frequently get asked. So as obvious as it may seem, it's understandable that since you very rarely use this piece of information, you probably don't know it. So, I'm not gonna lie, the majority of this information is probably gonna make most people cringe hard. It might be cringier than the previous video I did, and that was a cheesy Valentine's video. But this video is also so that people who don't realize they don't know this information can know this information, and hopefully avoid the embarrassment of being randomly caught on the street and then being recorded to be posted on YouTube for the world to see and think they're idiots. It's probably not going to happen quite like that, but you know, a similar situation might come up. So the first piece of information I have, one thing that people seem to get confused, or through the videos that I've personally seen, is when they're asked what religion Jewish people worship, they respond Jewish, which again, unless you're Jewish, you might forget, but they actually they follow the principles of Judaism. Jewish is somebody who follows Judaism. So just keep that in mind. Jewish is not a religion, it's what you call somebody who follows that religion. Another one that people have a tendency to, surprisingly enough, get really confused. Paris is a city in France. Paris is not its own country. Another one. I'm just gonna show a picture of the solar system, primarily because, again, not really something that comes up in conversation very often, and if it does, I have to wonder what kind of conversations you're having, unless it's astronomy based. Like, I could just picture a a girl or a flirt talk. Hey baby, did you know that Mars was the fourth planet from the sun? You get my point. Next up. Now the next one is one that I haven't seen in a video. I've just seen that a lot of people don't know this piece of information, and I think that's worth noting. Now, a lot of people are under the idea that during the final rounds of the United States of America presidential elections, there are only 2 candidates. In reality, there are actually 4 candidates in total. Now, yes, really only somebody from the Democratic or Republican Party has won for the most part, except for the time period where they weren't really formed yet, but that's a whole nother story. For the most part, really only anybody from the Democratic or Republican Party have ever won. I just think it's worth noting that there are 4 in total. During the last election, it was Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, Gary Johnson, and Jill Stein. Now, I can go into a whole other spiel as to the recognition these other parties deserve or don't deserve and what they should be considered as, but that's a whole nother thing. I just think it's worth noting that there are more people running for it, and if one is to be knowledgeable in these kind of things that affect even beyond America, that we should note that there are more than 2 candidates during these elections. Now, even when I'm saying it, it makes me cringe. And I really do think that for the most part, when people are asked this question on the videos that I've seen personally, it's really just them having a massive brain fart. It happens. So here it is. The Panama Canal. It's in Panama. And personally, I've seen a lot of people answer like South America, Chile. I think, don't quote me on this, but I think I've even seen somebody possibly say somewhere in Europe. Not sure. Point is that I think this probably doesn't need to be in the video for the most part. People probably already know this, insinuating by the name. It's just them having I think this one had to be in this video, but I wanted to throw it in there because I had to make myself cringe a little. And if you didn't honestly know that, well, now you do. Now, if you guys, I would really appreciate if you tell me what you thought of this video, if I should make more of these. I'm not sure what I'll call them yet. I guess I'll call them something along the lines of obvious things that you should know, or knowing something that everybody else that's, I don't know, something like that. Put suggestions for this series if you want it, and tell me if you even like it in the first place so I know whether to bother making these kinds of things or not. Other than that, make sure you leave your suggestions for other videos in the comments section down below, and make sure you hit that subscribe button and that bell button to catch my video in the next 2 weeks. I post every other Sunday. See you the Sunday after next. Until then, hear nothing and listen to all. Bye guys.